हेलो फ्रेंड्स, केजी क्लासेस में आपका स्वागत है। आज हम आपको टीएस एलियट के लॉन्ग आंसर के बारे में बताएंगे। क्वेश्चन फर्स्ट, गिव क्रिटिकल अप्रिसिएशन ऑन द लव सॉन्ग ऑफ जे अल्फ्रेड प्रूफ्रॉक। आंसर, लव सॉन्ग ऑफ जे अल्फ्रेड प्रूफ्रॉक इज वन ऑफ द मोस्ट पोएम्स ऑफ टीएस एलियट. It is an interior monologue, an improved form of the dramatic monologue. The poem is of the group of his early poems first published in 1970. It is characterized by ironic and epigrammatic terseness. It is highly compressed. It marks the beginning of new kind of poetry. Heading is substance. Prufrock is an old man. His hands and feet are lean and thin. His head has a bald spot. He is indecisive. He lacks courage. The irony is that Prufrock has fallen in love with a young beauty. He finds it much too difficult to present his love and to purpose to her. He becomes a case of split personality. His consciousness is split into his two selves, his romantic self and his earlier realist self. The poem is written in a stream of consciousness techniques in verse. Heading a Prufrock's predicaments. Prufrock is a modern man who suffers from anxiety. He is not sure of himself. The seat anchor of his faith is completely shaken. He lacks self-confidence. Prufrock's romantic self-purpose to his realist self that both of them should take him to his sweetheart's room in the evening. There they should encourage him to express his love and to propose to her. His realist self suggests him to postpone the visit for a while. The romantic self cannot decide as to how to propose to her. The situation is engulfed into its end, but Prufrock is in a dilemma. He cannot decide what to do later on. That is his predicament. His two selves keep on arguing between themselves but arrive at no decision. The poem ends in the states of undecidedness. The daydreaming remains inconclusive. That is the state of affairs in the modern world. Anxiety, fear, suspense, and despair. This takes him to alienation. Eliot excels in describing this peculiar state of mental anxiety of modern man. Heading a graphic description. The poem is full of graphic description of the landscape in the evening. The yellow fog that rubs its back upon the window panes, the yellow smoke that rubs its muzzle on the window panes, licked its tongue into the corners of the evening, lingered upon the pools that stain and drains. The description continues. The whole poem is full of such picturesque senses. Heading a poetic imagery. Eliot is great master in the art of poetic imagery. His imagery is quite modern. One beautiful example would suffice. When the evening is spread out against the sky like a peasant etherized upon a table. The picture of a peasant etherized is a beautiful poetic imagery. Quite modern. Eliot's use of similes is modern in the like manners. Heading is the epigraph. The poem bears an epigraph. It is an extract from Dante's Divina Commedia. It suggests that Eliot is going to create a character in this poem who will make a confession of his hellish misery. The poem is thus an interior monologue of the protagonist, the central speaker. It advises that the poem is a psychological interpretation of the mind of Prufrock, a modern man, the product of the modern age. Last heading conclusion. The love song of J. Alfred Prufrock makes a complete break with the traditional poetry. It is an innovation both in matter and manner. Eliot's another famous poem, The Waste Land, is composed in the similar style. They are both of them interior monologues. They alone can establish T.S. Eliot as a great modern poet. Question second. Write a note on Eliot as a poet. Heading Introduction. Throughout his poetic career extending over a period of about 45 years, T.S. Eliot dominated the English literary scene. He tried his hand at poetry, drama, criticism, both social and literary, and journalism. T.S. Eliot has been described by one of his admirers as one first holding the key of modern poetry in his open hand and then unlocking its door. As he flings open the door, we enter a strange world of people who have as if just escaped from the border and bastard life outside and found a retreat into the new inferno. It is said that human nature seldom changes, and these denizens of Eliot's inferno are basically similar to their predecessor in the realism of poetry, but in giving them vitality and individuality, Eliot has evolved a new pattern in poetic technique and achieved a remarkable position in the history of poetical innovation. Having a representative of his time, T.S. Eliot is a true writer of this age. Of his age, there can be no denying the fact that he was a spokesman of his age. One of his greatest achievements consists in his having given expression to the dominant anxieties and feelings of his age. Through the medium of his poem, he has rendered the torturing impact of a great metropolis on the human soul and anguish the inune, the boredom, the nuisance which such a life generates. Kathleen Wren writes in this connection, it is not every poet who has taken upon himself to experience and transmute such a great weight of human life and suffering, or who had found himself compelled to be the prophet of truth so terrible. Heading his classicism. With T.S. Eliot, he bent towards classicism as at once an aesthetic doctrine and a rule of life is fully revealed in the development of English poetry. In 1928, Eliot declared that his general points of view has become classicist in literature, royalist in politics, and Anglo-Catholic in religion. His criticism urged a program of the classical, the traditional, and the impersonal, even while he was producing a poetry which is poignantly romantic, strikingly modernist, and intensely personal. Adding a new approach to poetry. Eliot is a modern poet not merely because of the novelty of his themes and by a keen awareness of his time, but chiefly because he has evolved a new method of poetic communication. He saw the deep significance of the relationship between poetry and the rhythm and idioms of ordinary speech. He also felt that to build up poetry with dead idioms is like living a life of dead habits and absolute manners. All revolutions in poetry hold up this ideal, but Eliot gave a new meaning to this principle. He felt that it was high time that poetry was restored from the excess of artificiality and musical elaboration into which it had lapsed, having a high conception of poetic art. Eliot had a very high conception of the poetic art. As a critic, Eliot has given expression to his view on the nature of poetry, and his own poetry is best enjoyed and comprehended in the light of his critical credo. His belief in tradition involved the conception of poetry as a living whole of all the poetry that has ever been written. Tradition, he felt, cannot be inherited, for it involves the historical sense, and the historical sense involves a perception not only of pastness of the past but of its supersense. The historical sense compels a man to write not merely with his generation in his bones, but with a feeling that the whole literature of Europe from Homer and within it the whole of the literature of his own country has a simultaneous order. Heading impersonality of poetry. On poetry, Eliot's most remarkable contribution is what he himself calls the impersonal theory of poetry. In tradition and individual talent, he stated the poet has not a personality to express but a particular medium, which is only a medium and not a personality, in which impression and experiences combine in peculiar, unexpected ways. Impression and experiences which are important for the man may take no place in the poetry, and those which become important in the poetry may play quite a negligible part in the man of personality. Heading his idea of tradition. Tradition and the individual talent has become a classic in the field of literary criticism. In it, Eliot explores the relation of present to past as well as the nature of poetry itself. In the words of Matheson, in it we have the first full revolution of poetry since Essay in Criticism appeared in 1865. The Sacred Wood, published in 1920, completed the detailed, intensive re-examination of the quality and function of poetry. In considering Eliot's debt to tradition, we have to begin this with his conception of poetry as a living whole of all the poetry has ever been written, with his conception of the integral relation of the present to an alive past. He also believed that a nature poet is one who not merely restored a tradition which had been a abeyance, but one who in his poetry revives many staying strands of tradition as possible. Heading a summing up. R. A. Scott James has rightly summed up the poetic achievement of T. S. Eliot. So much was that in his bones he he was able to give to the language of poetry a new idiom, which is that of our time, employing images which are fresh and vigorous, and a metrical form which discard the vanity of the over familiar, the second hand, the outborn. He has been so much alive to his generation as to drag to light some of the hidden things which were gnawing at its heart and sapping its spiritual vitality. He is not content merely to expose stupidity, hypocrisy, vanity, but in lifting the veil makes us aware of the horror of all mankind and of the horror of the lonely human soul unless it is redeemed by courage and faith. During the 30 years of continuous writing in which his work has shown developing power, his influence has been primarily among intellectuals and especially the younger of them. Thanks, best of luck.